Hey guys, it's Jessica Likewise back here again, answering another question a parent sent in. You may already know, maybe this is the first time you're encountering who I am. Maybe you're following all the videos I'm putting out today. I am offering free autism support to families that were affected by the coronavirus. So many parents are homeschooling their kids and have no idea what to do and no idea what's going on. So a parent sent a question in. She said, I have to do discrete trials with my child, but I don't really fully understand what a discrete trial is. Now, I do have videos about discrete trials. It was the first video I've ever made on this channel. So it's 3 years old, and today I'm a little bit better at explaining things. So I'm gonna remake that video for this parent. Okay, so as a parent, ABA, discrete trial training, it may seem really, really complicated, and there may seem like a lot of components to it. But the truth is it's really a lot easier to understand than you may think. So all of discrete trial training has to do with an A, B, and C, which you probably heard before. What that stands for is the antecedent, the behavior, and the consequence. So the antecedent is what happens before the behavior is obviously the behavior, and the consequence is what happens after the behavior. So in ABA, the idea is that you can get a child's behavior to change if you change what happens before the behavior, what happens after the behavior. Now, this seems like, oh my goodness, a lot of letters, a lot of stuff going on, but it's actually a lot easier than it may look. So a lot of times, discrete ABC, right, the ABC principles apply to behavior management and figuring out why kids are doing things. We're going to just toss it out of the window for now. It's true, that stuff is true, but that's not what we're thinking about in this video. So let's look about basically how we would use the ABC principles in order to promote behaviors, which is what we're doing when we're teaching things. So that seems like a really weird language, and I know it really is, but if I were to say to you, what is it? And you say, it's a zebra. And I'm like, hey, great job, you're right, it's a zebra. It's actually discrete trial training. So the idea when I'm really putting this in layman's terms, but the idea when you're teaching and you're doing discrete trial training is essentially you're going to ask a question, your child's going to respond to that question, and then you're going to give your child a consequence or a reward. Now, the reward could be very simple. Yeah, you're right, good job. That could be enough of a reward to move on to the next question. And then you say, okay, great. So weird. What's this? This is a ball. Okay, awesome. That's a discrete trial. Your child may also need a reinforcer. So if your child's struggling to sit at the table, the ABC could be your question. Your child engages in the behavior, and the consequence is you're right, and you give them a piece of their favorite snack, or you give them their iPad to play with for 20, 30 seconds. So that's essentially all it is. Now, there's a lot of ways that discrete trial training is done. The first would be mass trial. So let's say your child's a young learner and they are not talking yet. You might ask the same question over and over. You might say, what is it? It's a ball. Awesome, you did great. You're right, it's a ball. Okay, ready? What is it? It's a ball. Great. Now, I wouldn't, like some people say you have to do things 10 times. You don't. Don't ask a child 10 times what this is. There's so many reasons why that's wrong and it's silly, but there's times where you might be doing things in mass trial, asking the same question. I don't personally use mass trial anymore in my practice. That's what I was taught to do 12 years ago. I think it made sense 12 years ago in terms of what we knew about how kids learn. I don't think it makes sense today. But mostly you're going to be asking questions in those sequences. Sometimes things are called things. You have these professional terms and these professional definitions of what things are, but they can be really confusing for parents to fully understand. And honestly, don't worry about the terminology. The reality of it is, if you're doing discrete trial training with your child, it really just means you're sitting down, you're asking them questions, you're getting them to respond to you, and then you're telling them whether they were right or wrong, and potentially needing to reward their behavior if you need to. Now, another way discrete trial training, I'm just going to give you a second example of what it could look like. So it doesn't always be asking questions. It could be for a child that's nonverbal, having them receptively respond. So it could just say, okay, point to the zebra. Perfect, right? That's a discrete trial. What's your name? My name is Jess. That's a discrete trial. Touch your head. That's a discrete trial. So essentially anything you tell your child to do, and then they respond, that's a discrete trial. So don't let it be so complicated. It doesn't really have to be. If it helps, just take the definitions out of it for now and don't worry about it. And just sit and teach your child the way you would think you would teach them. Almost everything, almost all behavior that involves two people is really discrete trial training, right? Remember that ABA is the science of behavior applied to help kids learn. But they took how people interact and they studied it, and they're doing it in discrete, meaning like a very simple kind of created way to help kids learn. We're kind of taking all the things that happen in social interactions naturally, we're making them happen in a very specific setting, in a very specific way. But they're things that happen naturally anyway. So you're probably going to be doing discrete trial training with your kid, even if you don't realize that. So don't worry about it so much. The one thing that you don't want to do is just keep repeating yourself if your child's not responding. And this is where people say, like, you have to have a consequence. You know, if you say to your child, what is it? They don't respond. What is it? They don't respond. What is it? They don't respond. What is it? And they don't respond. I mean, it's like ridiculous, right? You don't want to do that. And you want to give some sort of consequence. It's like, no, listen, I asked you what it is. Or, you know, but you kind of know that as a parent anyway, right? So the idea behind that is that a lot of times children don't know they're supposed to respond. So you're actually going to not be teaching them to respond if you're asking them multiple times. They'll learn to tune you out. Most of the time, honestly, when kids are ignoring you, they're just ignoring you. So make sure you have a good reinforcer. That's the number one way to help kids to be successful through this. Even children who don't normally need reinforcers for their work, and working at home is different. Working at home is new. Working with you is new. It really is the best thing for your child. I mean, your child's going to benefit so much from you doing this with them. It's going to help with generalization in such a huge, huge way. But it's going to be difficult at first for both you and your child. So the number one thing I can tell you as a parent, just take a deep breath. Don't worry about what professionals call things. Like, honestly, most of the language of ABA, it's just technical stuff made up a long time ago by people who are no longer living today and written in textbooks that are studied with our own specific terminology that we don't really need to call. You don't really need to know the names of what things are. Just take a deep breath, work with your child, and don't worry so much about the order of how you're doing things. Your child's going to benefit from what you're doing, whether or not you're making some simple mistakes, whether or not the discrete trial is done necessarily the exact way it's supposed to be done. You know, your child's still going to benefit. So don't stress about it so much. I'm going to create a video. It's going to post right after this one on some strategies and guidelines for making it easier for your child to respond to discrete trials. And there's also going to be another video posted today about how to get your child to sit at the table, because that is going to be the number one struggle. It's not so much how you're presenting these questions, but can you even get your kid to sit? Because they're not going to be used to sitting with you at home. There are some things we can do to make it more likely that they're going to sit. Although I'm going to tell you honestly, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for both of you at first, and it's going to be an adjustment. But also know that it is for professionals as well. We don't get kids often to sit the first couple days either when we're working with them. So don't think that now all of a sudden, because you're a mom and you have this history with the child, it's going to be easier for you to get your kid to sit. It's actually going to be harder than it is for a therapist, because you do have a history of them not sitting with you. So I will give you some strategies. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you found this online. And if you have a question, I really, really want to help your family. I'm committed to making videos all day, getting parents' questions answered. I have like this big list of questions that parents sent in. I'm making videos for every single one of them. So head over to my website, hopeeducationservices.com. I will make a video for you and answer your question. I want you to know I'm here. I'm supporting you. You're homeschooling your kid, but you're not doing it alone. I've got your back, and we'll talk soon again today.